What's up, y'all? Sparty here. I want to do my comparison between the LG V30 and the LG V40 here. I will be talking about the camera performance, battery life, display quality overall. I've talked about that in my previous video, but I'll touch upon it a little bit more when I'm in this video here, since they're both in the frame and there's no real reason not to talk about it. And I guess features and what they stand for, and is the LG V40 really something you should upgrade compared to the LG V30? Okay, so let's do this. So LG V30, Snapdragon 835, 4 gigabytes of RAM, 3,300 milliamp hour battery, a 2880 by 1440p OLED display. You got your headphone jack with your hi-fi quad DAC on the top. You have your USB Type-C with speaker grill on the bottom. You have your antennas all around. You have your SIM card tray right here with your micro SD card slot, expandable up to 1 terabyte. You have your 6 dual camera setup with your 16 and 13 megapixel cameras on the back. One's a f1.6 aperture lens. One's an f1.9 aperture lens. You have your power button that also doubles as your fingerprint reader. You have your laser autofocus and your flash. With your 5 megapixel camera on the front, all your sensors are here too. As you guys can probably see, the proximity sensor is flashing a little bit. It's a 5 megapixel camera with, I believe, a f1.8 aperture. I never really pay attention to the selfie cameras. I'm sorry, you guys. Okay, LG V40 here. You have your this is a 6.1 inch display. This is a 6.4 inch, also OLED 3120 by 1440p display. You have your headphone jack on the bottom this time, also with your hi-fi quad DAC, your USB Type-C charging port, and as well as data transfer and all that stuff. You have your speaker grill right there, but you also have your boombox speaker, so that when you lay your phone down on a flat surface, it'll use any flat surface as a sound amplifier. So it definitely destroys, spoiler alert, it definitely destroys the V30 in that department. But I'll talk about that a little bit more later. You have your microphone on the top right here. Microphone also on the bottom right in between the charging port and the headphone jack. You have your volume up and down. It's hard to see because the phone doesn't want to focus. But you have your volume up and down and your Google Assistant button. You have your SD/SIM card slot right there. That's also expandable up to 1 terabyte, or 2 terabytes rather. Both of these are 2 terabytes. I don't know why I said 1. You have your power button right here. On the back, you have a triple camera setup. Just your LED flash, no laser autofocus. You have your 12 megapixel camera right here. And dual, I think it's dual 16. Let me pause and check. I gotta really make sure. Okay, so on LG's side it says you have your dual 12 megapixel camera setup. Your standard angle and your telephoto lens are both 12. Your 16 megapixel is your super wide angle camera right there. I'm trying to figure out what they're not telling me the aperture or anything like that, but I believe the standard angle lens has a f1.5 aperture. The wide angle has a f2.4, and the telephoto has a f2.4. The wide angle has a f1.8. So there. On the front, you have a dual front-facing camera setup. One's 8, one's 5. And I believe one is f1.6 and one is f2.1 aperture. Sorry about that. Got your Snapdragon 845 with 6 gigabytes of RAM on here. So that's a slight edge above the V30. And yeah, it's pretty much it as far as specs go. Let's go into how I feel overall about these phones. With first talking about, I guess, call quality and all that stuff. Now, I can't do calls on here, but because it's not a T-Mobile phone, it's an AT&T phone, and I got to get it unlocked to do that. But I have been on like Skype calls and stuff like that, and I will say that the speaker piece sounds very good. People on the other side say I sound crisp. I haven't had any issues or anything like that, and it's been totally fine as far as that goes. V30 is very good with call quality. There's really no phone that isn't good with calls. So, like, unless you have a phone that doesn't have a speaker grill, like even the 6T, for example, its small speaker grill sounds serviceable enough when it comes to calls. So there you go with that. But yeah, both of these are very good with call quality and stuff like that. Nothing really to say that I have issues with. So there you go with that. If you still make calls in 2019, which a lot of people do, that's just a joke. So it's whatever. Texting, messaging. Both of these phones, it started with the V30, where they started having a very good haptic engine in their phones, and it has done nothing but improve over time. And I will say the V30 and the V40 are still good when it comes to that. Sorry, voice unlock kicked in for the V30 there, but yeah, it's both of these have very good haptics. You can customize the amount of sensitivity you want, if you want it to be heavy, if you want it to be light. And it just has the most very satisfying thunk that you can when you're typing on there, and nothing comes close to feeling as good as it. Apple is what I would say is the closest, but for whatever reason they decided to not have haptic feedback when you're typing, so whatever, I guess. But yeah, V30, V40, G7, all of these have very good haptics. If you want a phone with very good haptics, there's no other, to be completely honest. I'd say Samsung maybe, but I don't like how theirs feels. The 6Ts feels a bit cheap, but you know, that's whatever. So yeah, that's all I really got to say about that. Let's talk about, I guess we'll just go to audio performance here. Both of these phones have a hi-fi quad DAC, which LG has been doing since the V20 basically, and it has done nothing but, even though there's been slight improvements over time, you can still tell it's been happening. I can hear slightly more detail, even between like the G7 and V40, which they both came out last year. So that's actually pretty impressive that you can do that and just make something sound even better than the same phone with the same setup sound even slightly better. And that's just something that is very cool. But overall, the V40 is indeed better. You do get your DTS:X 3D surround sound if you want that. It is a really nice feature. I wouldn't use it on every single track. I would just use it on specific tracks that you're interested to hear how it will sound. Like, it's a very atmospheric type of song. Like, my demonstration would be if you listen to Tech Nine, listen to his most recent album, and use 3D surround sound on that, and it's pretty surreal. It only works with the headphone jack, though. I think with these next stock of phones that LG will be making, like the G8 and the V50 or whatever, they will indeed have it so that 3D surround sound works with the speaker, but we'll see what happens there ultimately. Screen quality. Both of these have really good screens. That didn't work on there. But yeah, both of these have really good screens. I will say that much. I will give the slight edge to the V40 because it does indeed look better. I'm not going to say that, well, it doesn't look that much better. It does look better, but I wouldn't say that it makes the V30's display look like a 1080p display or something like that. That's kind of hyperbolic. But this is technically a 3K display, though in its horizontal resolution it's still 1440p. It's so on paper it does still call it they still call it a quad HD plus display, but thing like wallpapers, everything looks very sharp on this display on the V40. You won't be disappointed by it. And in my previous video, I did any talk about the sharpness and color shifting and all of that stuff too. So if you want to know more about that, watch my other video, because I'm not gonna spend a couple minutes more talking about that again. So there. Sorry, I had to take a breather there. But what else? Performance. Performance is one of the things that'll make or break a phone. And I will say the V30 is still very good with performance. There's nothing really that I can say that'll make me say, the V30 is okay. No, I will say it's still perfectly serviceable to use this phone in 2019. Maybe you can hold on to it until 2020 and still be fine. The 835 is like one of those chips where I'd say is still comparable to use for another year. But if you want that extra power, well, the V40 is definitely the phone to get. I would say the G7. I would say it, but it's like there are certain things about this phone that make it so that it doesn't perform as well as the V40. And that's kind of weird. I don't know why, but I think because this has 6 gigabytes of RAM, the V30 has 4 gigabytes of RAM, and that might help ever so slightly, but it's not something that I would say is going to make or break it. Ultimately, it comes down to optimization, and I think the V40 is definitely far better optimized than the V30. Even though the V30 doesn't have that many hitches or anything like that, that's definitely something I would say is something I would take into consideration. Battery life, performance, the V40 stomps it. It really does. I can consistently get 5 hours of screen on time on the V40, whereas on the V30 I could get like 4, maybe 3.53 hours and 55 minutes on there maybe, but I can consistently get 5 hours, slightly a bit more sometimes on the V40. There's no contest there. And it also depends on your network and stuff as well. If you don't have good network connection, that might be a boon on your battery life as well, so keep that in mind. My experience won't necessarily be identical to yours. So say a couple months down the line or whatever, you come to this video and you say, I only get 3 hours on my V40 and stuff like that. Keep in mind that we all have different experiences when it comes to that. So yeah, we all use our phones differently, so keep that in mind as well. Gaming performance, the V30 is still very good when it comes to gaming. I wouldn't say that it's terrible now. It's definitely not. I could still use it and be perfectly fine with it, but the V40 is definitely better at loading games. I will say that much. It's faster when loading games like Mortal Kombat X. It feels smoother to play. Games look slightly better. It's just an overall better experience, but it's not leaps and bounds better to the point of being like, don't ever use your V30 for gaming. I'm not saying that because that's just not true. But yeah, overall, the V40 would indeed be better for gaming, in my honest opinion. Now I want to get into one of the bread and butters of the V series, and that's its camera. If you want to talk about sheer features, I'd say the V40 is the one for you. You get your cine shot and stuff like that, which is basically a cinematograph feature, and that's something that's very cool. I haven't tried it out yet because I just haven't had the time, but I've seen it in action, and it's very cool. I'd say look up videos on it. Just look up LG V40 Cineshot, and you'll see it doesn't look like like, say, if you want to compare it to like $1,000 camera or something like that, it won't look that good, but for a phone is very impressive. So yeah, let me talk about camera performance here. I'm going to show you guys a couple of photos that I've taken within like the past like 10-20 minutes here. Okay, so I don't think I took a picture of the brisk bottle with the V30. Let me check. Oh, I did. Okay, so I'm going to compare these by trying to get them as close as possible to the image. So the standard lenses on both of these, this is a 12 megapixel camera on the V30 16 megapixel camera. So I'm going to show you guys exactly how these look here. So the V40, as you guys can see, it's probably not going to look all that well, but the B has a little bit of wear and tear on the on the label. Same with the A right here. And as you guys can see, when I scroll over to here, there's a lot of detail when it comes to the patterning on here. That leaf right there is very sharp. It looks very nice and vivid. Nothing looks horrendous or anything like that or washed out. It looks it's a nice image, right? So I go to the V30, right? The V30 is also pretty accurate at showing, the wear and tear on the B, same with the A, stuff like that. Same here, but the leaf looks a bit, muddy and stuff like, not muddy, but it doesn't look as sharp. That could be due to the fact that I had to get my camera lens replaced. But overall, I would say that the image is still very good. When I scroll up to where it says iced tea and lemonade, you guys can see that the plus side is a bit blurry right here. Whereas on the V40, it's pretty sharp. Right, I can't zoom in as much because it's a 12 megapixel camera, but it's pretty sharp right here, whereas right here it's a bit blurry. Okay, so that's one picture right there. I'm gonna compare these, I guess. The Space Invaders little alien here, right? As you guys can see, there's a fair amount of detail right there. You can probably see the little specks of dust that are on it right here. And it looks really nice. V30, you can still kind of see them right there, but as I've said, probably due to my camera lens, it's a bit washed out. So it has a good amount of detail, still Instagram or Facebook worthy, but I wouldn't necessarily say it's the best thing. It's the best image to come out of this phone. Okay, so these next couple these Harley Quinn pictures right here are the ones I've indeed compared the most, because they show a bit of an interesting thing when it comes to both of these phones here. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit right there. As you guys can see on the V40, overall, the image is very sharp. Edges are not blurred out. And I know I'm focusing on, her assets, but, it's whatever. Her eyes are pretty detailed. You zoom in, they look very well. The light goes very well with the picture. It's dark, but it's not dark to the point of not seeing it. The fuzzball right here is very detailed. You can see the wear on the on the statue itself, and it looks very nice, right? You can see specks of dust right here, and it looks good on the V30. I'm going to try to get this to make it look a little bit. You can see that it's a bit blurred. You could probably see that it's a bit blurred right there. There's not very much dust that you can see right there. The fur ball right here is still a bit sharp, but it's not as sharp. It looks a bit more fuzzy right there. And I'm talking about grain, not necessarily fuzz, but it's a bit more grainy and stuff like that. The V40 does a bit better job at showing how the scene looks overall. And yeah, the reds on the V40 look better. They don't look very bright and stuff like that. Like ultra bright. And they just, overall, the image is it's just better on the V40. And I would say that it's overall the better image. So I don't take many selfies, so I'm going to try and find one that's decent. Let me see here. Yeah, there aren't many. I would say this is probably the best one I've taken with the V40. It looks very sharp. It's portrait mode. Nothing looks very washed out or anything like that. It looks very nice. Whereas, let me see if I can even find... I guess I don't have a... I don't have a selfie on here. But... if you know the V30 a lot, the V30's selfie camera is not that great. It's pretty mediocre, to be completely honest. And if you want a great selfie camera, the V40 is definitely the better option when it comes to that. What else? Nothing really. I haven't really been able to test out video, but if you know the V series, the V40 will be better, to be completely honest, because you could do 4K 60 frames per second recording, and they have better slow motion options and stuff like that. The only thing I would say gives it the slight edge on the V30 is the simple fact that you are able to go from your regular lens to your wide angle lens while recording, whereas on the V40 you can't. And I don't know why that is. Maybe it was just, software issues not working out that well. Who knows? But hopefully with the V50 and G8, they figure it out. But yeah, that's pretty much it, though, when it comes to this video. What are you guys' pick? Overall, for me, I would say the V40 is definitely a better phone. You could find it for pretty cheap on eBay now, like over $300, max $500. If you don't want it, if you don't really care about it, if you don't really care about, what am I trying to say? Being able to use it on the network, if you just want it as a Wi-Fi phone or a camera or anything like that. This is a perfectly serviceable, or a music phone. This is perfectly serviceable for that. And that's something that I will indeed say brings it up for me personally on the V40, and why I like this phone quite a bit more than the V30. But the V30 on its own is still a very good phone. Both of these phones still have 64 gigabytes of internal storage, but with that micro SD card slot, you can expand it, so that's whatever too. But it's yeah. V40 for me personally, but I'm still indeed keeping my V30 because I like it quite a bit. So let me know what you guys think of this video. Which one do you want to pick, V40 or V30? Let me know in the comment section below. This is Sparta. Thank you guys for watching. Thanks for the support. Hope you guys have a wonderful Friday or whatever time of day it is in your area. Have a good one. If you liked it, if you like this video, like it, dislike it. If you dislike it, share with people that are interested in this sort of video. Thanks for almost 600 subscribers again, and have a good one, you guys.